A few days ago, the Devils finally beat the Lightning. After struggling their last few games, are they starting to turn it around a little bit? And let's talk about the hero in that matchup against the Lightning, Stefan Noesen, and also Jacob Markstrom. I think both players deserve some more recognition for what they've been doing all year long. There's a lot to break down in today's episode of Locked On Devils. Buckle up, everybody.
You're Locked On Devils, your daily podcast on the New Jersey Devils. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hi, this is Bryce Salvador, and you're Locked On Devils with Trey Matthews.
Elliott scores! Oh, Steven stepped up, nailed him. Brodor's got the puck. What a shot. The Devils win the Stanley Cup.
Alrighty now, what is up, New Jersey? Welcome back to the Locked On Devils podcast here at the Locked On Network. I'm your host, college hockey play announcer, Devils where I have pucks and pitchforks, and also part-time credential media member, Trey Matthews. I hope you guys enjoyed your weekend. The Devils came out victorious in their latest matchup against the Tampa Bay Lightning by a score of 3-2 in overtime. What's on the docket for today's episode? Well, in the first segment, I want to share some general thoughts from that game. This is not going to be a post-game recap episode because obviously the game took place a few days ago. I'm sure all of you have moved past it, but there are some main takeaways that I want to address on today's episode because a lot of people have realized that the Devils have been slumping as of late. And I think this win against the Lightning, it can turn things around in more ways than one. Not that the Devils were in any sort of danger, but I know some people weren't really too happy with the style of hockey that was being played the last few outings. Then in the second segment, I'm going to talk about two standout players. I know the Devils have Jack Hughes, Jesper Bratt, Nico Hischier, Timo Meier, Dougie Hamilton, all those big name players who have appeared in an all-star game in the past. But there are two players that are contributing a lot this season for the Devils, and they're one of the reasons why New Jersey is in the position that they're currently in, and that is Stefan Noesen and Jacob Markstrom. Then in the third and final segment, I'm going to do something that I have not done in a while, which is we're going to look at the Metropolitan Division standings and look at a couple games on the upcoming schedule for Devils because I know they picked up a semi-big win against the Lightning in overtime. I'm sure the Rock was electrifying, but they still got a couple more challenges awaiting them, and both of them participate in the Atlantic Division. All right. So, like I said, the Devils won their latest matchup against the Lightning by a score of 3-2 in overtime. Ondrej Palat, he scored his 10th goal of the season. I know a lot of people have strong opinions when it comes to Ondrej Palat, but I think he's elevating his game just a little bit this season compared to a couple seasons in the past. But Victor Hedman, he answered right back. But the second period, Jack Hughes, he regained the lead for the Devils, and I was really happy when I saw Jack Hughes score just because he kind of had a rough outing in the matchup against New York Rangers. I know he had a multi-point performance, but unfortunately not many people are going to remember that specific outing, mainly due to him causing the turnover in overtime that resulted in Sam Carrick getting the game-winning goal and the Devils ending their road trip on a sour note. I said there was nothing to really be concerned about. It seemed like the Devils were playing just a tad bit fatigued, and maybe they just needed some rest. And in this game against the Lightning, it wasn't their best outing in the world, but it definitely was an important victory because, like I said, the Devils have been slumping. And their definition of slumping is way different compared to some other teams in the league. I've said it in prior episodes. The Devils' worst is still better than most teams' best. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, but going back to the final few days of 2024, the Devils were out in California and they got swept on that road trip. They lost to the Ducks, the Kings, the Sharks. Then they went up north just a little bit to Seattle. and they came out victorious, but Jacob Markstrom, he had to make some godly saves in order to keep the Devils in it. And the Devils were relying a lot on Markey once again. So it wasn't their best outing, but it's just like a win is a win. At least they walked away with 2 points. And then in the game against the Rangers, I already talked about what happened, but at least they walked away with a point. But the Devils just have been struggling to put up some consistency the last few weeks. And this game against the Tampa Bay Lightning, I think it was more important than people realize. Last week, I made an appearance on a Thunder podcast called We the Thunder, and the hosts over there do great work. Check it out. I will leave a link in the description if you want to check it out. We talked about my hockey journey, previewing the Lightning and Devils game, but the Lightning are one of the few teams that have had the Devils number all season long, because I think we remember the first go around in which the Lightning went against the Devils. I believe the Lightning came out victorious 8-5, and they were scoring a lot of power play goals. And one of the jokes I made was that Steven Stamkos, who has a wicked good one-timer shot, that's what teams usually feared when the Lightning went on the power play. But I said, he's no longer there anymore, but somehow, some way, the Lightning didn't skip a beat. And then in the game in Tampa, not too long ago, I was actually in attendance for it. The Devils got shut out 3-0, and Andrei Vasilevsky picked up career win number 301. And it seemed like the Devils were completely gassed after that Florida road trip, because during that span, they had a couple of hard-fought battles against the Florida Panthers, and it just seemed like the Devils just had no more energy. So third time is the charm. The Devils go up against the Lightning, and wasn't the cleanest of victories, and it had to go into overtime. And I'm sure a lot of people were sitting on pins and needles, especially with what happened in the game against the Rangers. And people have brought it to my attention, and I've realized it myself. The Devils aren't really the best when it comes to overtime play, but I still think they're very dangerous if you put them into an overtime situation, just because you got Jack Hughes, Jesper Bratt, Nico Hischier, 3 speedy guys coming down the lane. And sometimes it could give opponents a headache having to strategize against the Devils' speed. But if Jack Hughes commits a turnover, then that sort of negates it, if you would. But the game against the Lightning, I'm glad that the Devils came out victorious 3-2, and their PK was also very strong. Overall, this was a really good victory for the Devils. And that overtime, talk about the guts of Sheldon Keefe, because Nick Paul was assessed tripping against Jack Hughes. So the Devils go on the power play, and he puts out 4 forwards out there. So it was Jack Hughes, Nico Hischier, Jesper Bratt, and Stefan Noesen. As you guys know, I'm a big fan of Stefan Noesen and his overall game, but even he will admit to this. He's not really a guy you utilize in overtime situations. But in this case, Sheldon Keefe just said post-game, like, he didn't want to take those 3 players out, Hughes, Bratt, and Hischier. So he put in Noesen by default, and Nason's net front presence is what resulted in the Devils getting a 3-2 victory and sort of getting their comeuppance on the Lightning, since once again the Lightning are one of the few teams that have handled the Devils this year consistently. But I'm glad that they got the win in this case. They kind of got out of their own funk. I think the off day really did help them. So I'm excited to see what the Devils can do moving forward, and hopefully they can start to rack up more wins, because I think the most games that the Devils have won in a row is 3. I would love to see them go on a 5-game winning streak, if you would. Just, I don't think that's too much to ask for, but we'll see what happens. And we're going to look at the Metropolitan Division standings a little later in the episode, but the next segment, I really want to focus on Stefan Noesen and Jacob Markstrom. But before we continue, let me tell you guys about FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers can bet $5, get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Please remember to always gamble responsibly. Okay, before we talk about Noesen and Markstrom, first a fun story and also a fun fact. The story comes courtesy of my pal Neil Villapiano of Devil State of Mind podcast and also my colleague over at Pucks and Pitchforks. He said, remember game 3 of the 2018 Stanley Cup playoffs? That was when the Devils took on the Lightning. And who had the game-winning goal in that particular matchup? Stefan Noesen. I love it when things just come full circle. And how can you not be romantic about sports? Love that. And I'm glad that the Devils brought back Stefan Noesen. And I know a lot of people want the Devils to reunite with Taylor Hall. I think that's personally a pipe dream, but I'll probably talk more about that in a future episode. I think that would be fun to discuss. I don't think I've talked about a Taylor Hall reunion ever on this show, but keep an ear out for that. And then Amanda Stein, one of the team reporters for the Devils, she said, before scoring his overtime goal for the Devils against the Lightning, Stefan Noesen had only ever once been tapped to play in overtime during his 409 career games. That was back on March 5th, 2019, also with the Devils when he played 1 minute and 36 seconds. Last night, he played 35 seconds. His grand total of ice time in overtime is now 2 minutes and 11 seconds. Like I said in the first segment, when a game goes into overtime, you usually don't pick Stefan Noesen, but his net front presence really worked into the Devils' benefit that time around. And sometimes a blind squirrel can find a nut. But love Stefan Noesen, and we're going to talk more about him right now. So I know the Devils are a lot better compared to last season, and there's a lot of components to it. The first being is that they have been a relatively healthy team, and I think that was one of their issues last season. Too many players were out for an extended period of time due to injury. The second being is like I'm seeing a lot of great consistent play from their top 6. And I think the third and final thing is their goaltending, because that was definitely a point of emphasis last offseason for Fitzgerald, because running it back with the tandem of Vitek Vanecek and Akira Schmid blew up right in his face. And unfortunately, Vitek Vanecek, his luck just ran out, and Akira Schmid, I think the Devils kind of rushed him a little bit, and that kind of hurt him in more ways than one, but we're not going to harp on the past. Let's talk about 2 players that I think are the reason why the Devils are in their current position. No, I'm not saying they're like the MVPs of the team, because obviously Devils have Jack Hughes, Nico Hischier, Jesper Bratt, Timo Meier, Dougie Hamilton, all those big name players. But it really comes down to a few other assets, because it's a team game. You can't just have one top player and expect for a good outcome. You need some of those other solid contributors night in and night out, someone you can really rely on. And Stefan Noesen is the epitome of that. And then for the goaltending side of it, Jacob Markstrom, I would say he was the Devils' best player in December, and he has really shown a lot of great progress compared to his first few weeks, first few months with the Devils. Let's talk about Stefan Noesen. I've talked about his stats before, but they continue to improve. He has 17 goals this season. That's a new career high for him, and he's going to continue to add on to that. And the funny thing is that heading into the game against the Lightning, Noesen actually hadn't scored in quite a minute, but Bill Spalding, I guess, manifested some sort of good luck on him, because Spalding brought that up on air, and Noesen walks home the hero. Anyway, I don't believe in jinxes or curses or anything like that. It was just a little bit of a joke. I believe in timely or untimely coincidences. But getting back to Noesen, 17 goals. Not only is that a career high, he is tied with Jack Hughes for second on the team for most goals. Think about that. He has 11 assists, which is 7th on the team. He has 28 points, 6th on the team. And I've said that he is a huge catalyst on the power play, but did you know he's leading the Devils in power play goals with 8? His net front presence is incredible. I would say it's arguably one of the best in the league. He has 94 hits, third on the team. He has an offensive point share rating of 2.6, fourth on the team. I've talked about Stefan Noesen in the past and what he brings from a hockey standpoint, but I remember writing an article about it for Pucks and Pitchforks. I don't think I've discussed it on this show. One of the reasons why I love Stefan Noesen so much is that I believe in sports, you always need to root for an underdog player. Everyone loves a good underdog story. I think it's why a lot of people latch on to someone like Michael Jordan, because the story that's repeated ad nauseum is that Michael Jordan was cut from his high school team and then he became the second best basketball player in NBA history versus LeBron James. I'm sorry, but digressing a little bit, and hopefully a lot of you don't come at me for saying that statement, but everyone loves a good underdog story because everyone wants someone to root for. And I think Stefan Noesen is the epitome of that because I was present for his 400th career game. And when I spoke to him after the matchup, he thanked his family. He was somewhat emotional, and he was at loss for words because he said he and his family had to go through a lot. They had to make a lot of sacrifices in order to get him back into the NHL. After his first stint with the Devils, he was bouncing around the league a little bit. He was with the Pittsburgh Penguins, the San Jose Sharks, the Toronto Maple Leafs. Then he went to the AHL and played for the Chicago Wolves. He appeared in 70 games. He had 85 points, and he won the Calder Cup that year. And then the Carolina Hurricanes gave him a chance the very next season, and he made the most of it. And after his tenure with the Hurricanes came to an end and he became an unrestricted free agent, and he realized that he actually had a choice to go to where he wanted to go and lock himself up for a few years, he came back to New Jersey. That's why I love Stefan Noesen, just because I think a lot of people can relate to him, and I think he is a good representation for what New Jersey is. Now, I can't speak for all New Jersey people, but I'm sure like living in New Jersey, sometimes it could get overshadowed by the New York market, and people are like, New Jersey, it's its own thing. We don't need New York, something like that. I don't know. Maybe I'm stretching a little bit, but the point I'm just trying to make is that I think a lot of people can relate to Stefan Noesen. He's an underdog, and what he's doing with the Devils is just incredible. And he's definitely earned his pay grade, and he's very adaptable because when he was on the third line with Eric Haula and Paul Cotter, he saw great success. But you brought him up to the captain line with Nico Hischier, he continued to see great success. You put him in a situation that he's not accustomed to over time, he made the most of it. And Amanda Stein even said in her post that he's only played about 2 minutes in overtime in his entire career, but yet somehow, some way, he saw great success. So I would say he's one of the reasons why the Devils are in the position that they're currently in. And then for Jacob Markstrom, I don't think he's going to win the Vezina Trophy just because of Connor Hellebuck. If we look at the FanDuel Sportsbook app, Connor Hellebuck has the best odds. It's not even close. If you were to put down a $10 wager, you would only win 42 cents. But if you're curious, if you were to put down $10 for Jacob Markstrom to win the Vezina Trophy, you could potentially win $500. So take that however you want to take it. But I think Connor Hellebuck is going to win the Vezina Trophy. And Mackenzie Blackwood, former Devil, now with the Colorado Avalanche, his name is in the running for the Vezina Trophy. I don't think that was on anyone's bingo card heading into this season. But getting back on track, Jacob Markstrom, 21, 8, and 3, a 911 save percentage, a 2.19 goals against average. He has 3 shutouts. Like I said, I don't think he's going to win the Vezina Trophy, but the fact that he has his name in the running for it, I think that speaks volume because a lot of people were saying like, oh, Jacob Markstrom, the Devils should have gone out and got some other options. He's too old. He's not going to be all that good for New Jersey. Well, I know it's still relatively early in the season. We're a little more than halfway done with it, but Jacob Markstrom, so far so good, but his ultimate test is going to come down to the playoffs because Vitek Vanecek won 30-plus games a couple seasons ago, and playoffs didn't really go all that well. But for Jacob Markstrom, his progression has been incredible because I remember talking about it a few months back, which is if you were to look at his goals saved above expected and rank him amongst other goalies who appeared in a certain amount of games, he was near the bottom. But I said, don't believe advanced analytics. For me personally, I sometimes think advanced analytics ruins sports a little bit because they want to like nitpick all these micro things, say this, that, and the third. I'm just like, look, I'm watching the Devils game both in person and on my TV. Jacob Markstrom is passing the eye test for me. There's just something that's passing the eye test for me. And I think Jacob Markstrom has been good, and I think he's going to put it on full display as the season progresses. Lo and behold, one of the best goalies in the NHL right now. Unfortunately, Connor Hellebuck is just going to run away with the Vezina Trophy if all goes well, barring anything catastrophic happening, which I'm not wishing upon him. I wish him in good health and in good spirits. Let me just make that perfectly clear. But don't forget Jacob Markstrom. So, yes, we could talk about the Devils' touted players in Hughes, Heischer, Bratt, Hamilton, Meyer. But don't forget Noesen and Markstrom, because without those two players, in my opinion, the Devils aren't where they're currently at. There was something missing from the Devils team last year, and Noesen brings more scoring and also a grittiness, a toughness to the lineup. And Markstrom, he's reliable in net. It's one of the reasons why Jake Allen hasn't seen that many stars is because Fitzy said it's not going to be a 1A or 1B situation. Markstrom is the starting goalie, and he's made the most of it. And I'm glad that the Calgary Flames retained 31% of his salary. Thank you very much. Okay, to close out today's episode, we're going to look at the divisional standings. But before we continue, let me tell you guys about Rocket Money. Did Rocket Money help you find any subscriptions you forgot about or that you were paying for twice? That definitely happened to me. I had a few subscriptions and I didn't even realize I was paying for. And Rocket Money has made it so easy to track them all down. It's like having a personal assistant for your finances. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps you find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps you lower your bills so you can grow your savings. It brings everything together in one place, whether it's subscriptions, your spending habits, or even the goals you want to hit for this year. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all the app's premium features. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/locked on. That's rocketmoney.com/locked on. rocketmoney.com/locked on. And maybe you want to kick off the new year by saving some money. So give Rocket Money a chance. Okay, let's do something that I haven't done in a good while to close out today's episode, which is let's look at the Metropolitan Division. Because for the most part, there's been no reason for me to check the Metro standings just because the Devils have been really good. They're either in first, second, or third, and they've been in that position for a good chunk of the season. So, yeah, I just never really looked at the division because I'm just like, the Devils are going to make the playoffs if all goes well, barring a complete meltdown, which they were nowhere close to doing on this recent string of games, but that's just my personal opinion. When looking at the Metro division, the Capitals have 61 points. They're first in the Metro. Did anyone predict that coming into this season? Alexander Ovechkin, I'm sorry I doubted you going into this year. I thought Ovechkin was just going to worry about breaking the Wayne Gretzky goals record, but you take Ovechkin out of the equation, the Capitals are still a very good team, as proven when he went down with his injury. And kudos to Ovechkin for coming back faster than anticipated. That Capitals team, they've been entertaining to watch, I must say. And the fact that we might witness Ovechkin break the Gretzky record this season, that's incredible. I just can't even process it. And don't take greatness for granted. I'm just going to say this. I know the Capitals and Devils are divisional rivals, but don't take it for granted. And for Ovechkin, this is just a joke as a disclaimer, so don't take this out of context, but he's doing whatever Albert Pujols did to reach 700 career home runs that late in his career and that quickly. But that jokes aside, Ovechkin is one of the all-time great players. But Devils are second, 56 points. Hurricanes, 55 points. Hurricanes always find a way to stay in it. Blue Jackets are on a 4-game winning streak. They have 46 points. I honestly didn't see that one coming. Penguins, 44 points. It's a retirement home over there, respectfully. Rangers, 42 points. Islanders, 41 points. Flyers, 41 points. Yep, it's a race for the bottom. And it's like if the Blue Jackets go on a lengthy losing streak, then they're going to find themselves near the bottom as well. So I guess it's just a matter of like who's going to remain consistent and who's going to just fizzle their way down. Capitals, Devils, and Hurricanes are starting to separate themselves just a little bit more. But let's look at a couple of upcoming games for the Devils. All right. They are set to play the Florida Panthers for the third and final time this season. I was in attendance for their first 2 matchups against Florida. I would arguably say those 2 matchups in Sunrise were one of the Devils' best performances all year long, and I'm excited to see what they could do. And then the Devils will take on the Maple Leafs on Thursday. Sheldon Keefe is looking for his first win against his former club. He's seeing a lot of success, and credit to Craig Berube. He's doing his thing in Toronto, but I know Sheldon Keefe wants to get vengeance on Toronto because I've said it time and time on this show before. I don't think Sheldon Keefe was a problem up in Toronto. He deserves a lot of credit as to how far they came in the last few years, and I thank the Toronto Maple Leafs for gifting New Jersey Sheldon Keefe. I absolutely love him behind the bench. But, yep, Devils, after facing an Atlantic team, they're going to take on 2 more Atlantic Division teams with the Panthers and Maple Leafs. I think this is going to be a pretty decent-sized test for them. I know what they're capable of doing against the Panthers. Maple Leafs, I think they're going to break through and win because the last time they played the Maple Leafs, they played really good. Unfortunately, they got goalied by Anthony Stolarz, who was phenomenal in between the pipes and went into OT, but I don't think Sheldon Keefe is really that focused on the point. He wants the 2 points. And fun fact for you, the Devils have 8 games remaining in January, and 3 of them are going to come against the Flyers. Whoever does the scheduling it's interesting. I'll just say that. But just know Devils have some challenges up ahead, and we'll see how that goes, especially since it seems like the Devils are breaking out of their funk a little bit. But leave your thoughts below. What are your opinions on the Devils' last few games? What did you think of Stefan Noesen's outing against the Lightning, getting the game-winning goal in overtime? And also, what are your thoughts on Noesen and Markstrom? And are there any other players that are big reasons why the Devils are one of the top teams in the Metro? I'm curious to hear your thoughts. Leave a comment down below if you're watching on YouTube. If you're listening on podcast streaming service, hit me up on my personal X Page app at TreyMatt4 or the show's X Page app at Locked On Devils. As for this episode, that's all I'm going to have for you. Continue to stay safe. Have a wonderful day, New Jersey. Go Devils. I'll catch you guys next episode. Thanks for listening once again.